All right. Welcome back to another hour of Scotch Hour. I'm Noah.
And I'm Jesse.
All right, Jesse. Hey, just the two of us again.
Just the two of us. We can make it if we try.
We better not lose our day jobs.
Yeah, dude. I can't carry a tune to save a mouse's life.
Neither can I. Any case, we do have, I think, a pretty interesting show for this evening. We have, how do you pronounce this Scotch? Benriach?
Benriach.
Benriach.
Yeah.
All right. Benriach 10yr, right?
It is. It's the original 10.
Okay, and they're from Speyside?
Speyside, that's right.
All right, great. And so we got that on the docket here. And then after that, we have our shout outs and then our restaurant review, which I don't think we did a restaurant. So we're going to be talking about
There's prime rib and Scotch mushrooms.
Yes. that okay. That was the other flavor there. You did mention that. Okay. And then lastly, we have our topic, which is about the detective from Agatha Christie's books, which is
Hercule Poirot.
Hercule Poirot. Poirot. I'm not French. I'll butcher it. I'm American. I'm okay if I butcher stuff, right? We are well known as a nation of butchering French names, and I think, but he's not really from France, though. He's
Belgium.
Yeah. All right, and I think some real quick housekeeping notes here. I believe we are going to move our show back to being released on Thursday evenings.
Yes.
It just seems to be a better fit, especially for those people who like to enjoy a nice dram on a Friday night or a Saturday.
Or a Thursday.
Or even a Thursday night if they want to watch the show.
That was my habit.
I noticed I even have a harder time rewatching our shows when they have a Saturday release for some reason.
Yeah, it just doesn't work for me. Whether I'm at work or I have my kids, it just doesn't feel the same. But a Thursday night's perfect.
Yeah, so I think that seemed like a better fit for us. So I think we'll go ahead and go back to that. And another real quick note here. I'm not sure if we'll even shout it out at any other time, but I'll say congratulations to the LA Rams. There's less than 40 seconds left, and it looked like they're going to win the Super Bowl.
Yeah,
so.
it's pretty much over. If we turn the TV on tomorrow and find out that the Bengals won, dude, we must have missed the best 40 seconds of football.
Yeah, exactly.
Scotch Reviewed.
Here we have the Benriach, the original 10. So a single Speyside single malt Scotch with the master blender, Rachel Berry. Now, don't confuse that title, master blender, with a blended Scotch. This is truly all from the Benriach distillery with Scotches all made the traditional Scottish way. This particular one is crafted and aged in 3 different types of casks. So we do have the ex-bourbon casks, the virgin oak casks, as well as the sherry casks. So aged in 3 types of casks. We've had some good luck with that. This is not considered a peated Scotch whiskey. They do have a peated version as well. They leave that out of this one. So
okay.
It might be, it's going to be interesting. I'm thinking it might be a little bit like the Glenfarclas 10, but we're about to find out.
Yeah, so I guess as you're opening it, I'll go ahead, if you want to start opening it, I'll just go ahead and just say that it was founded in 1898 by John Duff, and it does draw water from the mineral-rich aquifer deep beneath the grounds at Rennock. Is it Rennock Farm? I think is where he originally built it.
Yeah.
And Rachel Berry, she was actually trained as a chemist.
Yes.
And if you want to check out, if you want to know a little bit more about her, there's a really good interview with her on what's called misswhiskey.com. So MISS whiskey.com. And whiskey is spelled with just a regular Y, not the EY.
All right.
And she's a very big proponent of of having women get more involved in the Scotch.
So am I. Yeah. Rachel, you and I both, is it Rachel, or because she is of a different descent, if you will, is it Raquel?
It might be Raquel.
All right. I'm going to have to watch this interview. I'm kind of excited about that.
Well, it's a written format. So I don't think you'll be able to actually hear that.
All right. We're going to find out. Might have to come visit you, Rachel.
But she was also previously in the same role at Glenmorangie.
Hey.
And has over 21 years of experience in the industry. And one of the questions here they ask her is like, what dram changed you into a whiskey drinker? And she put in here, in my adult life, I've always been a whiskey drinker, so I didn't need to be converted. Every dram changes me a little bit.
Interesting. I would say it's probably true for us as well.
Yeah, I would say so.
It's a pretty handsome bottle. It's interesting. I'm not sure how much of a role she plays in the selection. I was particularly drawn to the original 10's canister, the tube, if you will, the protective tube. And if anybody is curious why so many scotches come in these, it is literally to keep them out of the light and to protect them. But the bottle itself is pretty handsome, very simple, not too complex. Again, much like a Glenfarclas or, some of the other less designed scotches. It's simple with the letters in the glass and a very, very light gold, summer gold color, if you will.
Yeah, it does look pretty light from the glass there. And a nice little pop. Boop.
A little bit of smoke right out the tip. It's only supposed to have a trace of smoke.
Just the tip.
Just for a minute. And we will see how it feels.
Here it is. Do you feel more women should or could be involved in the industry? And she said, I absolutely feel that more women should be involved, and more women, and indeed men, are getting interested in and developing a taste for whiskey. Attending whiskey festivals and ordering single malt at the bar as interest has gathered pace. We need passionate, knowledgeable, and experienced people, men and women, to educate and encourage those who are just discovering whiskey. So I think she's like a very big proponent of just getting like new blood into the industry.
Building the business.
Yep.
I like it.
All right. And I guess we'll go ahead and do our little cheers. Oh, yep. Cheers. And then we'll go ahead and do our little, we'll do warp speed now. All right, so I guess do you want me to go ahead?
Yeah, start it up. Kick it off.
All right, so with the color here, I'm definitely more of a fan of a darker, brassier color. Not saying that this is a bad one or anything like that. It's just really kind of light in color. I put my color as being like a light pale straw gold color, maybe. Yeah. And as far as like the nose, I got like heavy barley with like hints of citrus and gingerbread.
Yeah.
So it's kind of inviting, but you got to be careful. Like, don't like stick your nose in your glass right away when you first pop the bottle, because otherwise, I think you'll get a lot of that alcohol type of smell, and it'll just bring your nostrils. But let it sit just for a moment or two, and then go ahead and then take a whiff of the bouquet. From there on the palate, the palate to me seemed it was like very nice. Had a nice front, had a nice mid. The back end, and for some reason for me, it just spikes, and it could just be my taste buds. But in the front to mid palate, I will say you get like a nice hint of sweetness there, a little bit of malt, and the sweetness that I kind of get is from kind of like bananas and some pears. So I think I get more pear up front and more like a banana flavor in the back. But the finish, when I say like there's a spike for me on the finish, it just seems like there's like a spicy like spicy oak or spicy something in there at the finish, which is probably hit with cinnamon there. And I think for me, and like I said, I'm getting that spicy like jump at the end, and I think that I'm after the last couple that we've had, they've been pretty smooth, and I, if you do like having a little bite near the end of your scotch, this is a great scotch to try to try out. But
I don't want to finish prematurely here.
No,
all right,
right. But personally, I kind of like more the smoother finish, and this to me doesn't give me that smoother finish. But I still think it's a very good bottle. I think being that you have a woman Scotch maker here that put this together, I think she did a really great job with it. I do enjoy it, but as I was mentioning, like for me, it just has that little bit of a spicy spike at the end, which after coming out the last couple of weeks is not kind of like what I was looking for. But it's still, once again, a very nice bottle of Scotch.
Yeah. At first, for me, much like yourself, I was a little worried. I'm not going to lie. I was like, all right, Rachel Berry, we got to talk. But after a few moments and after it has really started to breathe, I am very pleased with it. I would call it very layered. It's one of those scotches that we have that's very layered. And for me, Rachel, calls it summer gold. And I think that's a great name for the color, summer gold. And it's also smart, especially if you're trying to bring in a diverse crowd into an interest of this scotch. So I think, cheers to you, Rachel and Benriach. On the nose, I get that same barley malt sweetness. It's pretty simple.
It's loaded with barley.
Yeah, and then there's a little bit of fruit, nothing too crazy. On the palate for me, here's where it gets fun. Like, this is where these layers really come in for me. At first it didn't, but after sitting for a little while, it explodes with some pear, ripe pear, that sweet pear, and then it transcends into that malty sweetness. So from pear to a malty sweetness to a little bit of vanilla, nothing too strong, not like some of the vanillas we've had the past few weeks, but a pleasant vanilla. And then, man, from the middle on, it's just this sweet honey ride with a medium finish. And I dig it. I'm actually kind of loving it. I'm going to have to, I think we need to share this with some other people and really see what they think.
I don't know what you're talking about, Willis. What you talking about, Willis?
What you talking about, Willis? I really think it's a treat, and I am enjoying. I'm curious to see how it'll be in another 30 minutes. If there's any left, maybe. It's a Sunday. It's Super Bowl Sunday.
Yeah, we are filming a little bit early.
Yeah.
So. But yeah, I don't know. For me, I just didn't get that smooth honey ride.
Dude, for me, I'm getting the smooth honey ride, and like it's making me think back to James Bond, Honey Rider. Cheers.
But this could also be here's like another side note here. I think a lot of times too, it could be like what's going on in your mouth too, because here's something that happened to me the other night.
I
had some
What was her name?
I had some chicken wings, right? And I think I burned the top of my mouth. So I think that could be, maybe there's a possibility like there's a little bit of rawness there in the mouth there from like that burn, that to where maybe that's what's causing that higher spike in cinnamon.
Did you ever eat those honey sticks?
No.
As a kid, I haven't had one. I haven't even seen one in, I feel like, a decade. But as a kid, used to get them at a candy shop, and they were little sticks literally filled with honey. And that's what this reminds me of, is with the finish. With once you get past the initial palate and you get into the beginning, the mid, and the finish, it reminds me of one of those honey sticks, and it's fun. I think just the fact that it brings back a little bit of youth makes it a treat for me.
Well, that's good. I'm glad you're enjoying it, and I'm glad that reminds you of that.
Yeah.
The closest thing I had to honey stick ever.
Well, what was her name?
No, closest thing I ever had to honey stick that you're talking about there is I used to go to Whole Foods, and I get some like that raw, the local raw honey there, and I get some the peanut butter you get that they have the peanut butter grinder there, so they already have like you choose like which type of nut you want, and then it grinds it and it makes it into like the whatever kind of peanut butter you want or like almond butter or whatever.
Sounds like a woman's dream.
And then I would get like the little orange carrots, and I take the orange carrots, dip it in the peanut butter, and then I drizzle some of that honey on there. But
it's just fun. Like the fact that it brings me back to childhood. At first, again, you know me, man. I have no problem telling you don't ever buy or drink Scarabus, Total Wine. You lied to us. But with this, this is fun. At first, I was a little worried, but Rachel Berry, you have done well here. I'm enjoying it. I know we don't always see eye to eye. We've got our favorites. For me, I'd actually, and it's a sin sometimes to take a single malt Scotch of any caliber beyond, like what's a BB, a 0.10. I think it's a 0.15, 0.17, depending on your size. But, anything once you get to a real caliber single malt Scotch, it's kind of a sin almost to make mixed drinks of it. This one, I feel like you could do something grand with, something fabulous.
Nice. Well, I would still give it a thumbs up. I'd say it's still a very good Scotch to drink.
43% ABV, right around the $55 price point. And that was at Bevy's here in Parker, which has done well for us.
It's time for our shout-outs.
All right. So any shout-outs for you this week?
Oh, man. I'm going to say it's going to go straight to the Smarter Challenge, which we'll talk about here shortly. But, shout out goes to all the great authors who wrote fabulous detective stories that spanned great lengths of time. And we'll get to the Smarter Challenge in a minute, but Sir Arthur Conan Doyle or Agatha Christie, cheers to you guys for creating these stories which can be told and retold almost a century after originally written. Agatha Christie wrote her first Poirot book in 1916. It was published in 1920. That's 102 years ago. Now, Death on the Nile wasn't quite written that long ago, but man, how great is it to be an author? And just thank you to those great authors who wrote stories, including, Arthur Conan Doyle, who wrote Sherlock Holmes a decade ago, made into a BBC version. Fabulous. And you really just cheers to all the great authors, the Shakespeares, the Agatha Christie's. I don't know that most people would say, hey, put those in the same bucket. But the Arthur Conan Doyle's, just great job. That's an art.
So here's a question for you.
Yeah.
Do you think some of these authors know that they were as good as they were back then?
Oh, hell no. Nobody, I don't think, oh, yeah, man, I'm going to write a story and a century from now, they're going to tell an adaptation that still relates very closely and intimately to that story. I don't know. And you're talking Shakespeare, you're not talking 1, 2, but 3+ centuries now. That is amazing.
And here's the other thing. Do you think a lot of people that maybe seen the original plays or seen the original, read the original stories or when they first came out stuff, do you think they knew that they were around greatness at that time?
No, man. They were just highfalutin, money-rich drunkards. Of which I'm jealous because I would have loved to have been in that moment and experienced that in its true original splendor. No, I don't think these people realized it. And one of the things that I love about Perot is that he frequently reads Dickens, another fabulous author, in movies and in the books. And what a great little tribute to another fabulous author who did a great job. But at the same time, man, I don't know that you can rewrite his stories just because they were so historically based often as you can these others.
Yeah, I just think it's pretty interesting. You're right. A lot of these authors are from way back, from way before us. And I don't even know if they knew how great they were or or if they knew like how good their work would be in the future to affect future generations.
I don't think they did. And, I don't, and no offense to Joe Rogan, I don't listen to his podcast frequently or really ever. But I see a lot of his quotes and his clips from his podcast. And it's no different than that. Like, these are people of passion. And I think a century from now, love him or hate him, Joe Rogan is splendid in the fact that he leaves a mark, not the same as some of these others. But, I could be absolutely wrong. He might leave an even bigger mark. And with that, that's amazing. I think the truth is here, each one of these people had a talent, but more importantly, they had a passion and they followed that. And when you do that, at first you make a lot of enemies before you make friends, and then you make a lot of friends. And I think it's interesting because if you look at Joe Rogan's career with his podcast, he started about 15 years ago, roughly. Maybe it's like 12 to 15 years, right in that range. And he's made a lot of enemies. At the end of the day, he may still make a lot of enemies after he's dead. I think everyone has to realize he shed some different lights, like it or not, truth all the time or not. It was emotional. And I think that's actually no different than what Shakespeare did, especially in things like Hamlet or Romeo and Juliet. It's no different than Arthur Conan Doyle did in Sherlock.
I think there's a little bit of difference, though.
There's definitely difference, but I think these are all people. And again, you can't throw them necessarily in the same bucket, but you can if you say, this is someone. And now consider this. These are all people who have had a passion and they have lived it to its end, except for those that are still alive. So in this case, Joe Rogan. I will tell you though, Agatha Christie, Arthur Conan Doyle, Shakespeare, none of them had $100 million contract or its equivalent during their life, but all of their works made that for them.
That's what I'm talking about. Like I don't think back then maybe that they knew
they didn't.
Maybe they had some awards or maybe not. I just don't know. But I just don't think when you look at today's
alive, Shakespeare in particular.
Yeah, I think if you just look when you bring in Joe Rogan or somebody like that, they're like in today's society, it's like instant gratification. So he already knows how influential he is, or he's seeing that but someone who was an author way back when. And who knows? Maybe Rogan may have a lasting.
I think he's going
impression.
to have an impression that we can't fathom. That's going to be that profound, positive or negative. But yeah, you're not wrong. These earlier works is, I think technology and science has changed the world that we live in. Had these characters lived in this modern time and had the same ability and used their art and their passion to the same extents that they did, you see it throughout time.
So here's a good question. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Monet had a glimpse of how great his work would be, and he got to live some of that. Well, shortly thereafter, Picasso, the same. But as time has gone on, the artist has really gotten to enjoy more of the fruits of their labor.
So do you think maybe like Agatha Christie or Arthur, yeah. Do you think either one of them would have, if they lived in today's society, do you think they'd be able to write the same type of quality of a story or book, or do you think people would enjoy their works as much if they wrote them in today's society?
I don't know, because writing itself is kind of on the wayside, if you will. Now, that being said, someone with that artistic ability, the struggle would be, how are they starting to tell this story in a way that hasn't already been told? But you think about Hemingway, this is another one. This is another character. All of these characters that we're talking about, by the way, they all lived through wars and things that most of our current generations, thank God, honestly, haven't had to live through, because, we think about
devastating wars.
Devastating wars. We're not talking about, Afghanistan, which was a tragedy, and I hate the way it ended. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about wars where, hey, man, if this comes to American soil, it's over. The world life as we know it will never be the same. So we're talking about different things. These people mostly came from countries, England, which actually saw wars on their property. World War II wasn't in America. It was all over Europe. Now, if you change that landscape, we might have those great authors.
Well, I think talking about like going through that type of situation, like going through like a world war or whatever on your own soil, was it C. Lewis?
Yep.
Is it C.R. Lewis or C something Lewis?
CK?
CK, yeah. He same thing, right? Didn't he like write like the Lord of the Rings or something like that during like the bombardments and stuff?
That's just it. It's not necessarily you're telling something that's new, but you've got your own adaptation of reality. And so I don't know that they could tell the same thing, especially if they're American, but maybe if they were in the Ukraine or Moscow right now, no matter what we think in America, whether they go to war or not, no matter how serious we think it is, there are people, like if I was living within 100 miles of that line and I see and on camera what Russia has lined up on the other side of my Ukraine border, I'm writing a book.
So I know we got like a little bit off track there. I should probably reel us back in a little bit. Do you have any other shout outs that you like to mention?
No, just really
great authors?
Thank you to all the authors, past and present, who continue to write great works of art and just really share their passion, whether or not you guys are all seeing the instant gratification. Keep up the good work, stick with your passion.
Good.
Love life.
That's a great one. And sorry, I went off the deep end and asking you some sidetrack questions.
I think it's very important that people just ponder that for themselves. I think it was a great tangent, is to really think, am I doing something I'm passionate about? And, you can make all the money in the world, and when you're 50 or 60, if you didn't use your true talent or your true passion, that money may not bring you the joy that a poor life could have.
It's always good to pursue a passion or a dream or something. Because if you don't, if all you do is you just wake up, go to work at a place that you don't enjoy, you're not really living life.
No, it's, you think about The Dark Knight. And yeah, I need to stop taking this on different tangents. But as a parent or as a person, you really got to pursue a passion.
I believe so. I think, I'll stop there. So, any case,
so many tangents on this. The possibilities are endless.
Yes. Real quickly, I'll do my shout out. It's going to be to all the alternative media, as far as that releases information that goes against mainstream news, because obviously there's a narrative that's out there. But if you live in a free society, you need to have the other narrative out there to be pushed. So that way you can use critical thinking and take in all the information from both sides and understand like what's really being told to you.
Awake, not woke.
Yep. Awake, not woke. And I also want to give another shout out to all those Canadians and French people and the Germans who are all out there doing their freedom convoys. Yeah. The Canadians, they're fighting for their freedoms, and that's happening in Germany. The French, they've already the French they're gonna be encountering some tanks and stuff when they arrive to Paris. And here's the thing, like whether you're for the jab or not for the jab, I don't think that's really like so much the question here, why people are standing up. I pretty much believe it's more about people should have the right to decide whether or not to get it on their own, not to be dictated by their governments or pharmaceutical companies.
For me, just like if you are curious and you have an opinion, just stand back, whichever side you're on, and really look at the science. What does science tell you? That's all. That's where I'm going to finish. I love science, and anyone who's a true scientist, therefore, already knows which side I'm on.
So here's the thing, though, like, because you have you could say that, but then there's like a bunch of people who are out there touting, believe the science, and all of a sudden now you have the narrative. Now all of a sudden you have the narrative coming out from the government saying like, well, the science has changed. The science never changed.
Yeah. 2 + 2 is still 4. It's still 4, right, Brian?
the V was 0.1 microns. The spacing between fibers in a mask is 0.8 or is 8 microns. 1 micron is always going to be smaller than 8 microns, and whatever you want to say, 1 micron can pass through 8 microns.
And a pocket square will always be visually sexier than no pocket square.
But in any case, I mean, that's
the new science.
Yeah, that's the new science. But I just think, like, yeah, I think one always has to have a healthy distrust of government.
Not an unhealthy discharge.
And one always needs to have a healthy distrust of whatever whatever it's almost like what Thomas Jefferson used to say. You have to question everything, even the existence of God. Because if you question it, you're going to research it and you're going to find the truth for yourself. Yeah. And that's what I think. But the bottom line is, you have to go ask questions. You have to do the research. You have to find things for yourself. And I think that's why I think it's important for those people who are in the so-called alternative news media area, whether or not you believe them or not, they're giving another word out there for people to see and research. And I think people need to have both sides or multiple views in order to make to critically think and find the answers for themselves.
I just considered two things. Number one, definitely not going to have to worry about this being a short show. And number two, best Super Bowl commercial, Chevy GM Silverado.
Oh, the Sopranos.
The Sopranos theme song and Meadow Soprano driving.
And Anthony Jr. meeting up with her. Yeah.
Best.
I'll give that my
commercial of the Super Bowl.
I'm not all for the electronic cars.
4-wheel drive Silverado. It was a pretty sexy Silverado.
It was a pretty sexy Silverado, but I think that having that little shout out to the Sopranos and saying for the next generation, that kind of got me excited. Like, are they going to do another Sopranos with the younger with the children?
I don't even care. Maybe want a Silverado. First time in my life I wanted a pickup truck, and I'm not saying just a little bit. I want that truck now. Like, I'm really struggling. I'm like, damn it, Corvette, Silverado.
Oh, Corvette.
Last 21 years of my life, Corvette. Now that I'm 22, maybe the Silverado.
Restaurant Review.
Real quickly, anything you want to say about dinner?
Oh, so I keep toying with the prime rib recipe. So this recipe, I thought the last one was a little bit better. This one I used a little bit less salt. I used half and half kosher salt and half Himalayan salt. And then I increased the temperature cooking time from 450 to 500, or the temperature of the cooking time from 450 to 500, and then turn the oven off. And it didn't quite have the same effect. I don't feel like the internal fats created it as positive an impact to the meat. So we're going to keep toying with this recipe till we get it right, and then it'll be in our cookbook.
All right. Well, I will say I did like the previous version a little bit more.
I did too.
I did like having a little extra salt there on there.
I did too. And it was interesting. And then also,
I do prefer the Himalayan salt more.
Yeah. The other thing is man, I was a fan of the Scotch mushrooms. I did half Bella, half white.
The Scotch mushrooms did turn out very good. I would give you 2 thumbs up with that one. So yeah, I do recommend the Scotch mushrooms. Maybe Jesse will throw that in there into the comments area if anyone asks for the recipe.
Ask for the recipe. I'll share it. It's simple, but I want you to ask.
And just like I shared the Sloppy Joe recipe, since somebody did ask about that. So that's in the comments area in our previous episode.
Bro, dude, that one's worth buying.
The Scotch Sloppy Joes, those are good.
Yeah, you should have sold that. Just saying.
All right. I would say, once again, great dinner. Thank you very much for cooking it up. And I think it did taste it tasted great. I love the, like people who, prime rib, right? People who sometimes they overcook it and then it's just not that great. But yeah, I think you have the right temp on there. had the right amount of pinkness into it and stuff like that. The one thing I missed on it was just like I think the last version just had a little bit more flavor.
Better flavor. It's not just a little bit. It had a lot more flavor. So we'll go back to it. I think it's really the answer.
Smarter challenges.
All right, so this week's Smarter Challenge was to go see Death on the Nile, the 2022 mystery film directed and starring Kenneth Branagh. And I hope I pronounced your last name right, Kenneth Branagh. It was enjoyable. Now, the one thing I will premise, spoiler alert, we're going to talk a lot about this. If you've read the book, you already pretty much know there have been a few adaptations which were grand, but not so deviating from the original Agatha Christie story. It was fun. It was not as lighthearted as the previous one, Murder on the Orient Express. And when I say lighthearted, I think the original one was much more playful. This one, you can kind of tell, and it's a little bit later in Poirot and Agatha Christie's storyline. Fun fact, Hercule Poirot was the only fictional character ever to be named, the private detective ever to be named and have an obituary in the New York Times.
I did not know that.
How cool was that, right? Like
that's really cool.
When Agatha Christie died, they actually put that in there. I just was like, man, that's some respect, and rightfully so. This was just a great storyline. Appeared in 33 novels and 54 short stories. If nothing else, that's amazing. 33. How does any author write 33 books with the same character of any time?
Well, I think here's your point. I think you said like written format's kind of dying at the wayside there. Look at television. Television has kind of replaced books. That's
a good point.
Because back then, like in the 20s and 30s, you didn't really have TVs to sit there and watch.
I'll tell you what, and he'll be another future subject. Neil Gaiman is my only current author that I personally enjoy with any of the same, I will say, testicular fortitude. So getting back to the story though, Death on the Nile, Kenneth Branagh. This book was originally published November 1st, 1937. So we are talking 80+ years ago, 85 years ago, as a matter of fact. Star-studded cast, some of which I love, some of which I don't really care for, but nonetheless, a star-studded cast. Emmett Benning, Russell Brand. I liked him. I loved he did great.
Yeah. At first I was like, is that Russell Brand? Because
that's what I thought. I'm like, isn't this guy cracked out?
Like he looked a little bit too clean for to be Russell.
Yeah, I'm like, that's not the guy that was married to Katy Perry, but it was. But no, he did great. And Russell Brand, keep straight and keep doing acting like this. You were fabulous.
Yeah, I thought he did a fabulous job.
He played the character flawlessly. I think he did. I think most of them played their characters flawlessly. Ali Fazal, Dawn French, Gal Gadot.
She did a great job too.
They all did. That's just it. Whether you loved the character or you hated them, these actors did great. Rose Leslie. This is the chick from Game of Thrones. Married Kit.
Oh yeah,
Harington. Man. He won in that deal. He's like 5 feet tall. Just saying. She was made to look fairly simple in this movie. She's still hot. Emma Mackey, Sophie Okonedo. If I butchered your name, I apologize. We're American. Jennifer Saunders and Letitia Wright. All these guys did some great jobs.
And ladies.
Yeah, ladies. Oh, man. So let's think about that. Some of the different thoughts I have about this movie. Definitely fun with similarities to Sherlock. So whodunit. But in this one, more so than ever, Hercule Poirot is really looking at everyone and accusing everyone. There's that comment made by Book later when someone's like, are you accusing me of this crime? And he's like, he does that to everyone. Don't take offense. And I thought that was priceless. It was perfectly placed, harmlessly fun. And it was great. Emma Mackey plays Jacqueline or Jackie. Oh man,
she did a great job, but But I really loved her in her Netflix episode, Netflix show called Sex Education.
So I did not see that, but what I can tell you is I thought she played a very sultry, sexy, evil person well. Did it great. And we'll get to some of the other pieces once we get past the initial
I figured you're just going to do your brief synopsis and I'd do my brief synopsis.
All right.
And then we go into the other stuff.
Yeah, man. So with that, though, man, her quote that will forever stick with me is, he needed things, I needed him. What an interesting, I think that's actually more than not why crimes are committed. I think people, selfless people, when they do crimes, that's why. And it's hard to say you're selfless when you don't want things, when you want someone else, but I think there is a difference. Armie Hammer plays Simon Doyle. He deceived Lynette, played by Gal Gadot. Another great job, man. I hated that guy. He played his part well. I'm like, you're not just weak and a great dancer, which is how you get the ladies. I just hate you. And middle finger. Tom Bateman played Book once again, just like in Murder of the Orient Express. I love the character. It was interesting to see him and where he folded. Ali Fazal played Andre the lawyer. Again, a great job and played his part perfectly. You absolutely see he's trying to deceive Lynette or Gal Gadot's character. Man, it's just a quick introduction there. But what Perot continues to learn is that, man, almost everyone is capable of evil, and those who stick to the good are few and far between. The closest in the movie to himself is Letitia Wright's character, Rosalie, and man, after he sits there and assesses her character, he literally says to Book's mom, she is not just fit, she is a catch. And I think to that point, those people really are the people who live by a code that is also very moral. It's rare, and they are a catch. That's my quick synopsis. It was fun, man. Okay. Man, everyone in this movie, almost everyone does evil. And I know a couple things you were going to say. At least I think you are, because we had a conversation before the show. And I'm going to leave you to say those because I think they're great points. If you don't, I'll revisit.
All right. So honestly, I just, after your introduction there, I just want to say that I do think the actors that they brought in, they did a great job. You're absolutely correct with Russell Brand. He was at first I didn't really recognize him. He didn't play his normal type of character, so I thought that was really great to see him expand a little bit.
Sleeping on fuzzy walls.
Yeah. I thought Annette Bening did a decent job for her role. Gal Gadot, I thought I was very impressed with her. I'm like, hey, that's not Wonder Woman. Also, here's the thing with these, this type of a movie here. If you do want a nice, fun, lighthearted murder mystery type of a movie, which kind of does take you back to more of the, I don't want to say simpler times, but more I guess earlier decades.
Innocent times.
More innocent times. It's a very good flashback into the earlier times. And I think here, it's more of the mystery capers, where it just seems more lighthearted and not so serious and
political.
Political, or even as visually assaulting to the eyes. You don't see a bunch of blood splatter going on, or people you see you hear a gunshot go off, but then you don't really see it really happening. And it kind of goes. It kind of reminds me of the old, there's another type of, Asian guy who did detective, Jackie something or other, Jackie Chan. Yeah.
Dude, that guy's a badass. He really is in real life.
Yeah. And then there's, then you got the Sherlock Holmes and stuff like that. And it's just kind of really easy, really interesting and kind of a fresh, reprieve, if you will, from some of the more violent things that we're seeing in movies and TV anymore. And which has been kind of nice to see here. And it is kind of neat how you see like the storyline kind of develop, and then you see that finally it builds up, just kind of like in the the Murder on the Orient Express. The things happen, and then it builds up, and then the murder happens, and then you see him going around and just accusing people. And I think this is where maybe I think part of the reason why he accuses everyone is that way he can see how they react to being accused, and this kind of helps him kind of like break down like who actually really did it. And not only does it help him break down who actually did it, but it also helps him see like all the other different avenues or perspectives of each person, like why they would want to kill somebody and what they actually really did do. And I think that's how, like in this particular one, the Death of the Nile, how he was able to see like who stole the necklace versus who was the murderer, and what situations caused which other situations. And I think it's if you want a really fun, enjoyable movie, and you love how how movies build up to a crescendo and then kind of come to an ending, I think this is a very good movie for you to watch. And with the acting, the cinematography, the old vintage type of like, I guess the way they dress the cast and all that type of stuff. Here I would give it definitely 2 thumbs up.
Yeah. So with that, much like this Scotch for me, this movie was fun. It reminded me of being a kid reading the whodunit books. I don't know if it's because age does that or life does that. Man, the whodunits were so much simpler in the past. And I think one of the things that Poirot does that's different than Sherlock, but also along the same lines, is he does a great job attaching people's emotional actions to the end result. And with that, you see Book, his great long-standing friend who loves Letitia's character Rosalie, but he has no money because he got fired from being
everything he did.
Yeah, everything he did because he's a bad person. He meets Rosalie, who's managing her aunt and is straight by the book and lives by a strict code, pays her taxes on time is one of the comments, pays her bills on time and to the dime. Nothing more, nothing less. In other words, she's not an evil person. She's never trying to do anyone harm. But she understands that business is business and everything else is everything else. And with that, he's going through the characters and
Wait, can you pause right there?
Yeah.
What makes you think like a woman who's like so like by the book like that to fall for a guy like Book who is just a playful person? And he even makes a comment, I believe, in the movie that he has always felt like he had to be that playful clown for everybody else until he met her.
Yeah.
So what makes you think like why would a lady fall for a guy like that, and why would a guy want to change for a woman like that?
For me, the answer is for the first time in his life, he found someone who would hold him accountable.
And how about her?
And for her,
do you think it's about rescuing him or fixing him?
There's always going to be little pieces for someone like that with those pieces. But there is also another piece where, man, you want someone who is unintentionally doing stupid stuff, but intentionally doing good things to create great experiences. And that's what she really wanted, was those great experiences. In my mind, she wants the great experiences that he's creating without intentionally doing harm. The harm he does is unintentional. He's an idiot. So not really, but he's just not smart. And he even makes that comment to Poirot. He's been trying to save money. He's just not good at it. And that's just real because he wants to live in the moment. He wants to have the experience. She can't create that, but she can get it from him. It reminds me of someone.
So it's would you say it's almost like a yin yang situation?
Yeah, for sure. It reminds me a piece of myself, because if it comes down to going to the Denver Botanic Gardens or going to the Denver Art Museum, most likely, and encompassing going to a restaurant or having some drinks, spending $100 for a membership I already have when I don't have to spend anything, possibly getting a souvenir. That experience is more important than the $100 to me, because you can't get that back. It's like travel. You get an opportunity, take it. You don't get it back. You may not have the money, but if you have the money, you didn't have the experience. And so that's where the yin and yang, as you reference it, I think that was their attraction, was this innocent piece. And I do think it was innocent. He turns evil, if you will, when he has failed. So in the movie, there's a shooting, and it turns out Lynette, Gal Gadot's character, has been murdered. He goes to the room and sees her murdered. He has two choices. Number one, go back and do the right thing. Or number two, hey, wait a minute. This chick has, in the book, it's £1 million string of pearls. In the movie, it's a $2 million yellow diamond. He takes the yellow diamond because he's like, I found my out. This answers my problems.
Well, sometimes I think, I think this brings up a good point here, though. Sometimes when there's something that pops up like that, like an opportunity,
he's stupid if he doesn't take it. But
yeah, this is where a person,
unless you run into Perot.
Well, I was gonna say, this is where your own moral code comes into play, and the codes that you live by. When that kind of opportunity presents itself, what would you do? I mean, I'm not asking you to answer that. I'm just saying, like, this is a question anybody would have to ask themselves. If you found your situation and where you're like, you found yourself in his situation, is your code good enough to be like, well, no one's going to notice it, I'll go ahead and swipe it? Or I was just saying your code's not good enough to do that, right? Or because then you would do that.
Is your code that?
Yeah, is your code that? Or is your code to where, like, all right, I know like this is sitting here. People may not even suspect that I have taken it. She is dead. They probably would think that whoever the murderer was took it, and I can get away with it, but I won't do it because it's the wrong thing. So is your code strong enough? Do you live by that code, or is your code not very strong, and you would swipe it?
That's a good question. I think it's a question for someone like me. I would have to, and I hate to say this, but I would have to be like living in that moment. I'd have to be in that moment. $2 million sitting on the table.
Well, and that's what I'm saying. Like, I'm not asking you to answer. I'm just saying, like, I think that's what people need to ask themselves. Like, what is your code? Like, if we're going to go back to the whole
reason this came up.
Yeah. The
codes.
whole theme that like, is your code telling you to swipe it, or is your code telling you to alert everybody and tell them that she's dead and don't take the jewel?
That's the point, though, and I think that's what makes the movie fun. And I don't know that many people like have the insight to actually ask themselves that question, because for me, I can tell you right now, I would have to be living in that moment before I could honestly answer that question.
Or here's the other one, too.
If I found $2 million on the sidewalk, not my property, but on the sidewalk in front of my house tomorrow morning on my way to work, would I pick it up and hide it, knowing it was probably somebody else's because I didn't lose $2 million? Yes. That's the struggle.
So here's the other thing is,
chick's
like,
dead. She doesn't need a necklace. It's not hers anymore. She dead.
here's the other thing, like, a person probably should ask themselves or even think about. What about Jackie's code, right? Jackie, she's apparently best friends with Gal Gadot, her character, which is Lynette, right?
Lynette.
So, but yet they're supposed to be best friends, and Lynette, or Gal Gadot's character, said, "You're my only friend, or the only person I know that never cared about my money." But yet this whole time, she plotted against her to take the money.
See, I agree with you. And that's where the next twist comes in. It's tricky. So I'm going to take a side step back for 1 minute.
Okay.
As we talked about with Hercule Poirot's abilities, his detective abilities, and asking people questions and pieces, it's ultimately, these are the little things that I think are true in life. It's ultimately the attachment to the necklace that Book finds so that he can get the money to go live a life with Rosalie. So he did it again for love. This is twisted. It's the wrong thing to do for love, by the way. And he's told as much later, right before he's shot and killed, which is actually what triggers Poirot, is the fact that Book is killed, and now the one person that Poirot had an emotional attachment to on the boat has been murdered. And you see it. He picks up the .45 and he locks everyone in that room, and he solves the crime.
So here's going to your other point here about earlier about how this was not as much of a fun or wasn't as lighthearted as it was.
It's definitely not. It's almost dark.
And the reason why is because he lost his friend.
Right. But he also finds himself.
Yeah. So here's a question for you, and I'll tell you my favorite part too. Like, what was your favorite part of the whole movie?
So in the movie, if you look at Poirot's character, you find out, man, this is awesome. At the beginning of the movie, it's World War I. He's in the trenches. And I made the comment, I'm like, can you believe these fools, every time they advanced 50 yards, 100 yards, 300 yards, they had to go dig more trenches? Like, that's the real work. God damn, son. So digging trenches, Poirot finds the way, is intelligent enough, scientific, mathematical, calculating is probably the appropriate answer, to get them to advance and take their land back, Belgium. And with that part is fun. But what he isn't able to do is save his captain, because his captain goes and trips a wire, kills the captain. And I thought this was beautifully played. Scars Poirot in such a way that he ultimately ends up wearing a mustache.
He wants a mustache ride.
That's right. The rest of his life. You know what? If anyone wants a mustache ride, they're on sale today. $0.25. Usually I get a 50-cent piece, but $0.25. So with that, though, he wears a mustache through the movie. And this is interesting because it plays into the end where he finds himself. I really loved the way they brought that in throughout the entire thing. But some of the playful times is when he's talking about loving the jazzy music, but he in there meets Sophie's character, Salomon, and Salomon is a jazz singer, and he does love the jazzy music. He has a fun, and he actually has a moment with her, several moments with her, where they see each other who they are, and she makes the comment to him that he hides behind this mask, this face, and she's not wrong. She's the first person, and I think this is what he ultimately loves. And I think that's an appropriate word. He loves his first love since Catherine, who died when he was recovering from his own tragic injury.
Would you say the reason why he's wearing that mustache is because she dies on the train, and therefore he because like at first I think
she dies. Catherine dies from a mortar when she's coming to visit him on Christmas.
Yeah, but here's the thing: is like when she first visited him, he had like no passion for life anymore. He thought he was like a total.
And her answer is.
And she's like, you can just hide it behind a mustache.
And that's exactly what he does. But he's wearing a mask. Yeah. And again, man, Kenneth Branagh, man, you did a fabulous job. Whoever ultimately is the writer and how you acted it was fabulous. But at the end of the movie, he goes to go see Salomon, and he had shaved off his mustache. And I thought why this was my favorite part of the movie, to answer your question, but also so wonderfully played, is because for the first time in either of the two movies, Murder on the Orient Express and or Death on the Nile, of which up until this point throughout all the movies, everyone recognizes him. Everyone treats him with the greatest respect. Everyone gets out of his way and gives him anything he wants. In this instance, he walks into a jazz club where she's singing. It's the end of the night. They're doing one last rehearsal before they literally lock the doors. And he walks up the stairs, and some guy's like, get out of my way. Like, excuse you. Like, how dare you come that close to me? There's actually a line of history behind that. Poirot hated people to scuff his shoes, but as he was going in, he didn't care that his shoe touched the other guy's shoe. The other guy did. He goes in, and everyone's treating him like crap. He's like, we're closed. Dude, not like sir, not like Poirot, we're closed. And he's watching her sing with their last rehearsal of the night, and then he turns his face and you see he had shaven off his mustache. He had gotten rid of the mask that Salomon, earlier in the movie had said, you hide behind this mask, and he was. And it was the first time I think anyone had made him reconsider who he was. And I loved it.
All right, so mine's way more simple than yours. Okay, I just asked for like what scene was your favorite, and you go this huge tirade, which is great. My favorite scene was just really simply when Perot was at the at the pyramids.
Oh,
And he sees a kite flying, and he's like, "What are you doing? You're ruining a perfect. You're ruining a perfect scene here." And there's his friend,
his cake.
and there's his friend Book sitting there flying a kite. I thought like that little scene right there was perfect. It just showed how Book was such a fun-loving guy, and it shows how Perot like really enjoys and likes to encapsulate the scenery or the things that are going on around him. And then when he sees his friend, you see the love of the friendship. And I think that's real simple. Like that's what I like.
Great. It is great. And it's a good point too, because that's why Rosalie and Book have this attraction, is because that is Book. He's like up there, and until
he's enjoying life,
dude, until Perot finds out it's Book up flying this kite upon the pyramids, he's literally is drinking his espresso with his super special dessert cake, and he throws them both aside. He's like, "Hey, yo, what are you doing on the pyramid? You are ruining my scene." And it's right though, but the difference is that was Perot at that point, not living life, but enjoying the scenery, not actually living though.
I don't think he was living life. I think he was in his in his shell doing his thing, and then there's Book doing his thing, which is enjoying life, living life.
Yeah, like you
and exploring.
Yeah, dude, and you got to do that. It's a road trip in the middle of winter or summer or spring or fall when you don't know what the weather's going to be, or you do. It's a spur of the moment expedition,
road trip to nowhere.
Yeah, dude, it's whatever it is, or it doesn't have to be nowhere. It can be Roswell.
So, okay, so let's go ahead and you want to wrap up here. I'm not sure if we hit all your points, but let's.
The biggest thing for me here is. Agatha Christie did a phenomenal job writing these books. Again, we had 33 novels, 54 short stories, a handful of novellas. But really, that's the bottom line is she did this great job with this character who has stood the test of time. And why he stood the test of time, he was crafted after other actual individuals, but he also aged as she did. And I think that's one thing that isn't always considered. As he aged, he dyed his hair black. He had these beautiful, lively green eyes that lit up like a cat's when he was excited. In the movies, they're blue. He doesn't dye his hair black, so it's a little bit different than the actual books, but nonetheless, you could see he pays the same care and attention to his look. And with that comes some pieces of vanity. He is hiding behind a mask. We all do in different ways, I believe, whether we want to or not. And he did it so well. It was so well directed and acted. And it was a fun movie, but it is definitely dark in comparison to Murder on the Orient Express. I feel tragically with the way it ended. This was intentionally ended so that there would not be a continuation of this spur of movies, which is sad to me because I think they did such a great job. I would love to see it. I think if there is any more movies, they bit and piece ones previous to this, which were not necessarily as popular or well written by even Agatha Christie, but it was fun. If you are looking for a good show, realize if you're comparing it to Murder on the Orient Express, that movie ends with his invitation to come solve a murder, and that has happened, and then this movie starts. It does not literally start as I thought it did, as Murder on the Orient Express ended. Right. It ends after he solved one more crime and goes into the death on the Nile. The last two things I want to say about this movie. One, cinematography. A+. When they come upon the different, the pyramids or the different scenes in Egypt, unbelievably.
Okay, I gotta ask you this. When you say the cinematography, which I totally agree,
dude, amazing.
Did it not make you want to go do like a river cruise on the Nile?
Right now, like I am in. What? There's war and I might get shot. Let's do it. Right now, I want to do that as bad as I want to go do the alien cruise once the cruise ships are allowed and all the restrictions are lifted. Okay. We're doing that. But like literally, I'm like, I want to go.
Yeah. That's cinematography. They're like, man, I need to go see the pyramids. I need to go see go out there, and I want to go take a river cruise.
Yeah, and it's just like, oh my God, this is so amazing. It reminds me of my childhood. I'm excited. It excited me. And that's one of the things I think Perot does for me in general, is that he makes me excited even when it's dark. He makes me want to be a better person. And I don't know that many characters do that. I know that Sherlock is great I love Sherlock. As great of a character as he has always been, he didn't necessarily make me always want to be a better person, a smarter person, but not necessarily a better person. But Poirot always makes me want to be a better person. Okay. And this was no different.
And then the other point?
Oh, man. I want to go back and revisit some of the early pieces and see how this character transformed. And I challenge any of our watchers and our viewers to pick up a book and do the same. Go and read something, see a movie, see the transition. I'm actually super excited to do that.
Well, I'll first start off here on my wrap up is I didn't even know Agatha Christie wrote these books. Like I've known about like the Murder on Orient Express, like, and I knew about the death on the Nile, but I did not know that she was the one who originally wrote the books or wrote about that character.
I don't think she's celebrated like she should be.
Yeah, and she probably needs to be better recognized for that, or maybe she is in that realm. But like honestly, I didn't know. So when you told me that, I was like, oh, really? I knew who she was I knew she was an author, but I didn't know like what she wrote. But so I thought that was really cool. This is, once again, I think it's a great movie. I think it's a great movie to take your family to, or if you don't have a family, it's still a great one to go enjoy by yourself. It is very much a fun murder mystery caper type of movie from kind of like a throwback, and it is from a much simpler time. And I think especially like how much we've been bombarded with so much violence and blood and gore and stuff like that. It's just kind of more refreshing to see something in this kind of light. And it makes it, as you say, kind of more, it's kind of it's an enjoyable ride, this movie. And it's enjoyable to see him work and just see him go from, being invited along to the party to when the murder happens, to see him work his craft. And that's what he does. He works his craft. He's a master of his craft. And then from there, from there, he's able to solve everything that happens and some of the peripheral stuff of other things, which I think is really kind of an awesome take on it. And I mean, it's not like super hard to figure out who was the murderer or who was kind of like the mastermind. I mean, even if you don't know the story, I think it's pretty easy to kind of solve it. But the way he comes about and solving it, I think that's the real treat.
Yeah, and I think also just the fact that he's emotionally impacted gets his little gray cells going.
Right. And I think to kind of just tie in to the whole like theme that we've been going on with here with your codes. I think people, when you watch this, I think it'd be interesting for a person to self-reflect and say, if you were in Book's position, could you or would you take that money or the necklace?
Yeah.
Or in your case, the money outside the door?
Yeah. Or, if you're...
or are you the type of friend that would betray and stab your friend in the back like that and plot against them for years and years?
Or, if you're Jackie, are you willing to... Because she did not care about the money, but she knew that her Army Hammer cared about the money. He needed things and she needed him. And that's what she says, spoiler alert, as she kills them both. Very Romeo and Juliet Shakespeare oriented. But, I think it's real. Are you that person? I actually think there are more people than not that think their codes are stronger than not and would...
Because what kind of friend does that show her to be?
That's just it. She is the shittiest friend on the planet, right? But she'd be a great lover.
Possibly.
No, man, she would literally kill for you.
But here's the thing. Would she really be a great lover? Because,
she would not hold you true to your own moral compass. If you had a strong one, it wouldn't be a struggle. She fell in love with people who did not.
Here's the thing, though, right? Like, would she really be that great of a lover? Because she just gave her lover to someone else so that way they could steal money from him.
There's a long game and there's a short game. You can lose a hand or, lose a game to win the season.
All right. So okay, so I think that overall 2 thumbs up for the movie.
Oh man,
Watch
it was fun, but it was darker than Murder on the Orient Express.
And I would say I think it does pose some good questions about self-reflection and how you would be as to question your own codes.
Yeah. Are you Jackie? Are you Book? Are you Sophie? Are you Lynette? Are you Perot? And
I actually feel sorry for Lynette though, because she said with all that money that she has no real friends. All she has is enemies.
And she knew better then, and she also stole her best friend's man.
Yep. So I mean, yeah, and that's the other. That's another.
I don't feel sorry for her.
That's another good question about
Take
codes.
the necklace. Like at the end of the day, I gave 0 craps about this lady.
So that's the other good thing. A good point right here when you're talking about codes. Are you the type of friend that would steal your friend's lover?
Man, see, there's 2 sides to that. As you asked the question, no, absolutely not, ever. And
I'm not asking you to answer the damn
dude,
question.
I will always answer the damn question because I've thought about that. And I think I'm honest with self-reflection. Are there evil things or wrong things I would do, especially if it was to better my kids or save my kids or to save a love or to, do these things? And yeah, man, I would do a lot if it meant the survival of mine.
So here's I think a good proper answer is it's kind of hard to say unless you're in the situation.
Some things are, I can tell you right now. And at the end of the day, Gal Gadot, you are gorgeous as a person, as a character, as Lynette, as a Wonder Woman. Man, you're dead. I'm taking your necklace.
All right, so that being said, I guess next week's Smarter Challenge, are we there?
You are. Wait, you know what? Life is great.
Life is great.
I'm loving the Scotch. I know it's not your favorite. I'm enjoying.
Well, here's the thing. Like I said, I think part of it, and I didn't even enjoy the other Scotch I had earlier too, because I think part of it is because I burned the roof of my mouth. So.
Dude, that's tragic, Brian. You made the damn salsa too hot, the green chili too hot. For me, dude, the Honey Rider in this, that's literally what I'm gonna always remember this as, is the James Bond Honey Rider Scotch. Sexy and smooth, fun, brings back the youth. Perot has done the same, especially with Death on the Nile and just reconsidering these things. This show has done all of that too. Life is great. Drink responsibly. Don't drink and drive. I'm going to keep that one even in there, even though we're drinking responsibly, because there's an excess of just don't drink and drive. But with that, man, thanks for the show.
Yeah, thank you. All right, so this next Smarter Challenge is going to be watching a documentary.
Oh my God.
But I think you're going to like it though.
All right.
So the documentary is going to be called, it's not going to be called, it is called A Rich Man's Tale, 9/11 to JFK.
Oh yeah, JFK.
And so really it is a documentary. I want us to watch the documentary, but really the documentary does lead up to 9/11, but really more so like I want us to really focus upon in this documentary is the part that leads up to and talks about the JFK assassination.
I like that. I'm digging that.
And then with that, if we want to bring in like Oliver Stone's information about JFK or any other information we have about JFK's assassination, we can bring that all in as well. But the main part I want us to watch is from this documentary, because to me, I think this documentary is pretty much on point, and it brings up some stuff that I don't think a lot of the other resources brings up. So I think that's going to be a good one there. I haven't picked out the Scotch.
That's not true. We got next week's Scotch right here. So the past few weeks, we've had some delicate and wonderful Scotches. Just last week, we had the Oban.
The Oban Distiller's Edition.
Oh my God. Fabulous. The week before that, we had the Glenfiddich 14, a bourbon barrel, creamy and smooth. A lot of the scotches we've had were creamy and smooth. This, to me, because of the honey is somewhat creamy, not as smooth as some of the others. I'm still digging this honey rider. That's what I'm going to call it. But so next week, we will follow up with the Glenmorangie. So this is the Cadball Estate, year 2, season 2, edition 2, whatever you want to call it.
Rachel Berry's old employer.
Yeah, literally. I think it falls in line flawlessly, does it not? So it's perfect. No, I mean that. Is it not perfect? So we were literally going to go, just in the past weeks, we've talked about and had fun with the Glenfiddich 14. You mentioned Debbie, mom, really enjoyed that conversation. We're going to do it again with the Glenmorangie 15, American Oak and Bourbon Cask, deep and creamy whiskey. So that'll be next week's scotch.
Okay, I guess that will be next week. So I thought that was going to be in 2 weeks.
No, man, 2 weeks is the 52-week annual edition, man.
All right.
That's got to be something deeper.
Okay. Well, all right. You made the call there. All right. So with that, anything you want to say to the people before we sign off?
Thanks for watching. Let's get back to the basics. We're getting ready to start our We're getting ready to start our second season, not our sex and season.
Our second year, man.
We're getting ready to start our second year. And with that, please give us feedback. Let us know what you like, what you don't like. Give us the honest truth of what we should or shouldn't do. I want it. We'll use it. And, thanks for watching. Please continue to give us ideas, what you want to see, what you don't. We can tell you, respond via email or whichever, if we'll do that or not. Some things we just don't go, we're not encroaching upon. Others will absolutely enjoy. So, thanks for watching. Please continue to share.
All right. Thank you. And thanks for doing the show with me, man. I think this is great.
Dude, tonight was a blast, man. I started out after the Super Bowl and I'm like, man, I don't know why I'm so tired. And then we started the show and I'm like, I'm excited. The scotch is great. The subject is fabulous. I could have literally talked for 5 hours.
I know you could have. All right. So I just want to say, hey, thank you everybody for watching our show. We greatly appreciate it. Please, as Jesse mentioned, please like, share, subscribe, leave some comments down below. We want to hear what you thought about maybe the murder on Oriental Express, what you think about the death on the Nile, Agatha Christie. If you did try this fine
Benriach. The original 10.
The original 10 of Scotch here. Let us know what you think about that. And honestly, if you are watching us, you're probably on YouTube already or on Rumble. And hey, thanks to the new Rumble. Yeah, we got one new Rumble subscriber. So thank you to everyone who subscribed on YouTube. Thank you. I think we're up to, was it 41 now there? So we're growing slowly but surely. But hey.
Better than shrinking.
Yeah, better than shrinking. Better than jumping in cold water and jumping down and turtling.
Still growing.
So in any case, once again, thank you guys very much for watching us on either YouTube or Rumble. If you are listening to us, wherever you are listening from, thank you again. And if you do like our content, please become a Patron member. You can do that by going into the comment field. It's the very first link in the comments. It'll say become a patron and just click on the link. You'll be able to find it right there. And you can become a patron for
give us $1. You'll be surprised at the extra footage you get access to.
So just to let you know, we're going to start adding in our, as we do our tasting, our whole warp speed section. That's now going to be put into our Patreon area. So that way the patrons can listen or watch that section. And then any other kind of bloopers or clips that we might be cutting out of our shows.
Which there's a lot.
So with that, thank you once again, everyone, for watching us. Same Scotch time, same Scotch hour, and cheers to you all.
Cheers.
We hope you enjoyed this evening's episode of Scotch Hour. If you did, please like, share, and subscribe. Also, if you have not done so already, please become a Patreon member, with memberships starting as low as $1 a month. Thank you, and hopefully you have a wonderful evening.